Hi, welcome back to our conversation on hand grinder safety. In this video, we're going to wrap it up by talking about how to safely use the hand grinder in the shop. So right now I've got myself all suited up and ready to go. I've got this vise on a pedestal set up in a room that has adequate ventilation. To make sure that I turn the ventilation in this room on. Okay, it's on a timer system, so I've got about 60 minutes here of ventilation before I have to turn that again. And the ventilation fans are up above. That's going to help with any fumes that are going to be generated as a result of our grinding process. If I was grinding in a room that was not properly ventilated, then I would need to also add a respirator. If I'm going to do any long-term grinding, then I would add a respirator anyways. And I would consider anything more than 2 minutes worth of grinding, I would be putting on a respirator, because in that anything more than 2 minutes, you are still generating dust and you should still wear that respirator. So quick short grinds in this shop are fine, but 2 minutes or more, I'm going to ask you to put on a dust mask. So first thing we're going to do here is we're going to mount our material. And if I want to do some grinding to dress the edges of this tubing, I want to point out that make sure that you don't have your project sticking too far out from the vise, because that's going to flex. Not only that, but like when I push on that, it wants to move quite easily. And so what we want to have, rather than this, I mean, if I come along with my angle grinder and I grind on there, it's going to be bouncing and moving and chattering. So rather than grind, it'll just make a lot of noise and vibration. So instead, you want to move your material very close to the vise. And that way, there's a lot less flex, which means there's going to be a lot less chattering and there'll be more grinding happening rather than it just skipping around. So I'm going to just dress that edge. The next thing you need to think about is positioning your material and your vise to send the sparks in a safe direction. I don't need to send the sparks out into this shop. I'll just send them against this curtain here. So when I grab my grinder, I get a sense, I can see which way the wheel spins because there's an arrow, but if not, you can give it a quick little test. And I can see that it's going to send the sparks in that direction. So if I give myself a little spark test and touch down here, I can see where the sparks are going. And so what I will do is just direct those sparks in a safe direction. There it is. All right. Another thing that needs to be considered is that when I'm grinding, we don't want to send sparks up. So if I was trying to dress this edge, I'm going to send sparks upwards. It would make much more sense for me to spin this whole thing around this way and for me to grind in a downwards direction, sending the sparks over to the side and down. So as you are grinding different parts of your project, you're constantly adjusting your project, taking it out of the vise and rotating it so that you're always sending your sparks down and to a wall, rather than sending them up and out of the room. You are responsible for where your sparks go. So if there are other people, it's your responsibility to manage where those sparks are going and to make sure that you're keeping everyone else around you safe. Another consideration we have to make while we're grinding is one of the common problems that you have with an angle grinder is people running into the cord with the cutter, and when they either wreck the cord or you even risk electrocution. So when we're grinding, we need to think about the position of this cord. If the cord's along the ground like this, rather than grinding with the cord in front of me, I would turn all the way around so the cord wraps behind my back. And that way, while I'm doing this grinding operation, there's no chance of the cord coming in contact with the grinder. Okay, also, when we have a cord that's hanging from above, we still need to make a consideration about where we're positioning this cord. So if this is in front of me like this, there's always that chance that while I'm grinding that this cord can get involved with the actual grinder, so it'll wreck the cord and risk electrocution. So I would again turn my body right around and have the cord in behind me so that while I'm grinding, that it's not going to come in contact with the grinder stone. Another safety risk that we have to talk about in regards to the hand grinder is the potential for you to burn yourself. Hand grinding creates a lot of friction and a lot of heat. and the heat that's left in your project is hot enough to burn you quite badly. So you have to make sure that when you are handling small objects that have been ground with a hand grinder, you handle them with pliers. Now people want to use gloves to handle hot objects, but these gloves will get badly burnt. This is a burnt glove that has been ruined because people handled objects that were too hot. And as a result, I've had to take it out of circulation, and we place these red X's so that people know that this glove is no longer going to be used to protect hands. Now, a perfectly good glove can be very quickly ruined if you grab red hot or very hot objects. So if you have a large object that is not suitable to be picked up with pliers, then what you would do is you'd use a sacrificial glove that has a red X on it, and you could use that. Say if it was something large like this, you could put this on here, and then you could handle this hot object with a glove. But we do not want to risk burning a perfectly good welding glove by handling hot objects without first placing a sacrificial glove over the hot area. Now, anytime you're unplugging any kind of a corded tool, make sure you do not grab it from the cable itself. Over time, that will wear this out and cause it to split or fray. What you want to do is grab the plug head, and same for this, because the same applies on this end. If we just continue to pull the plug like this, we're going to stress out the joint. So we grab both plug heads and separate them. And then when we put this away, you can see over time there is some stress on that cable from people tying this tight, and that will wreck this cable and we'll have to get it replaced. So what you want to do is keep a big loop in the end of this. That big loop helps to keep the stress off there. And you bring this cord down, and then once you've got that big loop, in all honesty, you can just hang it like this on the wall. Leave a big loop, and it will fit just hanging like that. You don't need to wrap the cable on this because we've got a nice mount that'll hold this on the wall. If you did need to wrap a cable of any kind of a power tool, then you would leave a nice big loop, and then if you're going to do a cable wrap, you would wrap this cable, leaving a nice big loop in it like that so it doesn't stress out that cable. And that concludes our conversation and safety demonstration on the hand grinder. As you can see, it took quite a lot of video clips, and it took quite a long time from start to finish to give you all of that information. And quite often, it only takes the average person a couple minutes to teach that to somebody. In the high school setting, and given how many people are using the tools and how young our workers are, it took this many videos and this much time because there is actually quite a lot to know. It's one of the more dangerous pieces of equipment that we use, and it's often overlooked by people. People think that it's just simple, easy, and they just grab them and they just use them. So I hope that when you use a hand grinder, you understand that it's quite a serious tool and can be quite dangerous. I want to remind you of all the videos that we've watched. You've watched videos talking about what the hand grinder is and what types of things it can cut. We've talked about the different types of wheels that the hand grinder can have mounted in our shop, and which ones require permission and direct supervision and which ones you're allowed to just use. We've talked about installing those wheels properly and improperly, and how to recognize an improperly mounted wheel. We've talked about all the personal protective equipment that you need to wear to use the hand grinder in the shop, and also some things that you don't wear, just like gloves. And we've talked about how to mount your material safely, holding it in a vise, and set yourself up in a well-ventilated room, and talked about how you need a respirator if you don't have good ventilation, or if you're going to be hand grinding for more than a couple minutes. And lastly, we've talked about how to use the hand grinder safely in terms of positioning your body, directing sparks, and how to make sure the cord doesn't get damaged. So those are all the things that we've talked about with hand grinder, and make sure that if you are going to use a cutoff wheel, that you get your teacher's permission and direct supervision.